Hey there, so this is a throwback video to one of my first pairs of pointe shoes back in 2021. Here is how I prepared them as a beginner to pointe back then. Keep in mind that all of this was filmed 3 years ago, and I've definitely improved and updated my shoe prep routine, but I thought it would be nice to look back on this. First, gather all of your materials, mostly sewing items, as well as a pen or pencil. I was fitted in these Bloch Axioms, and I really loved the way that I felt so held and supported in these. First step is to put them on with my tights and toe pads. If you look closely here, I'm wearing the Minden pointe pockets. The Axioms were such an exact fit on me that I didn't feel the need to have thick and heavy padding. Next step is to determine which shoe will go on the right and left feet. Fun fact for all you non-dancers out there, pointe shoes actually have no left or right, but because a lot of them are handmade, there may still be very subtle differences between each individual shoe that you get. My left and right feet are also a little bit different, and I'm also someone who is rather sensitive to these subtle differences, so I prefer to try on each shoe on each foot and go by how they feel. I can't fully articulate what the right feel is, but one thing I can say is that I need to feel very held and stable on both feet. So sometimes if I first try on a new pair to determine left and right, I'll feel a bit wobbly in both feet. Then I'll know to switch the shoes around and it always feels much more stable. I know it's weird, but I'm sure I'm not the only dancer who feels this way. Once I've decided which is which, I'll label at least the left shoe, like so. Some dancers will write the label on the outsole instead of the insole, but for me, I choose to do it on the insole just because it's easier and quicker to see when I'm putting my shoes on. Next step is to sew on my ribbons and elastics. I chose these ribbons from Minden. I believe these are called the TLC ribbons. They're similar to the bunhead's flexor ribbons where the bit that goes behind your Achilles tendon is stretchy, but the rest of the ribbon is not. This is to give you that support without irritating your Achilles tendon. My Achilles tendons are thankfully still mostly healthy, but my right one can get a bit sensitive sometimes due to an old non-ballet injury. I ended up cutting these a little too short, or like very weird, unfortunately, so the stretchy part didn't fully line up with the back of my leg, but it is what it is. These ribbons are really nice. The non-stretchy part feels kind of plush or kind of velvety. Not sure if those are the right words, but that's how they feel to me. The Minden TLC ribbons are also wider than other flexor type ribbons, and I felt like that gave me additional support. Plus, these ribbons' shade of pink matches the Bloch satin quite well in my opinion. I sew them on kind of at or like a little behind the pointe shoe's waist seam using the really thick bunheads thread, and if you notice, I actually double thread my needle too. I use back stitches and sew twice for extra security. Finally, tie that off with a knot and cut the excess once done. Repeat on both sides for both pairs of shoes. And here's what they look like once all the ribbons are sewn on. Next, let's move on to the elastics. I can't remember what brand of elastics these were, but they are the mesh type. Mesh elastics will blend in with your tights and or skin better and are less visible, but they offer a little less support compared to the non-mesh ones. I sew them on similarly to the ribbons, double thread, backstitch twice over. I did crisscross elastics for my first pair just because I thought it offered more support, and to this day I still sew my elastics that way. I've tried just the single loop elastics, but I didn't really like them. I felt like my shoe was slipping off on the midfoot or the arch area, so I've just sewn them crisscross ever since. If you notice here, I anchor the elastics just below the ribbons, but other dancers kind of fold the elastics in with the ribbons and then sew them together to save time. Ever since I learned that you could do that, I've changed my method to incorporate this now with my current pairs. I also make sure to finish my sewing and anchor the stitches to the actual satin of the pointe shoe, like I don't cut and tie off just at the end of the elastic, so I kind of do a few more stitches just for extra security. I don't know if it actually helps, but I psychologically feel more at ease that my ribbons and elastics won't snap off. And here they are once fully sewn. I sew rather slowly, plus filming anything makes it take twice or thrice as long, so this did take about an hour. I'm a little faster now, but yeah, when I first started I was quite slow. Next is to try on the fully sewn point shoes. Again, as I mentioned earlier, notice how the stretchy bits of the ribbon don't align to the back of my leg. I've since developed a way to avoid this mistake now though. Tie your ribbons and cut off the excess. I didn't film it, but a lot of dancers will kind of singe the ends of the ribbons so that they don't fray. I did that though after I filmed. Some dancers will also cut the ribbons at an angle, but for now, let's just do a normal straight cut. Tuck your ribbons in neatly and then repeat for the other shoe. Last step is to tighten, tie, and cut the drawstrings. The drawstrings on the Bloch Axiom are cotton, not elastic, so make sure not to tie them too tight. Since they don't stretch, there will be no give whenever you plie, and so if you tie them too tight, they will hurt. It's not a must to tie the drawstrings into bows. Other dancers just double knot the drawstrings and cut, but I like to be cute, so I put in the bow. Then I tuck them in. And now it's time to break in your shoes at the bar. I usually would just do some pliés, roll through my shoes, really make sure I'm emphasizing my demi-point and roll up into point, and try and get over my box. I know my heels are lifting here. I had really tight Achilles back in the day, which I have been slowly and carefully stretching out over the years. Here, as you can see, I'm really trying to emphasize the demi-point and go through each foot. This is kind of like a warm-up we do as well for pointe class, so I thought it would be a good way to help break in my shoes as well. I also did some élevés in first. And last, some bourrées to finish. I hope you enjoyed and that this was informative. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.